Hey everyone, Repoze here. A lot of people liked my last tier list video that I made right before this current wipe, so I figured I would make an updated tier list video for the next wipe. So obviously I'm just making this for fun. I kind of like making it before the wipe, so people know what I think going into it, but when those patch notes drop for the next wipe on the 6th, like, the entire list could just be irrelevant, right? So I'm just making these for fun, and keep in mind, like, it could all change instantly on wipe day. I just want to give my thoughts on what I think the meta currently is, not including multi-classing, obviously, but just right before multi-classing, and what I think going into next wipe. So I'm going to rate the classes from Thanos, S, A, B, C, and do not play this, and left to right doesn't matter, so furthest left is higher up on the tier list than something on the right. So I'll do all three queues, starting off with solos. First, we have Barbarian, and I'm going to go ahead and throw Barbarian in the A tier. I think Barbarian is definitely a solid class to play in solos for next wipe. I think it is a class that is definitely, it's better against worse players. Some people think Barbarian is either like S tier or Thanos, but I don't think so. I think it's definitely pretty good and very playable. I think the best Barbarian build is the full move speed Barbarian. With that build, basically the idea is you build your kit around getting 330 movement speed with fists out, whatever you gotta do to get that amount of movement speed, and then any stats you get on your gear after that are kind of just like bonus. So yeah, that's kind of the build. I think it's really good because Barbarian has enough raw health and just base damage on weapons where you don't really need to build like dexterity or strength or anything like that. You can just stack up a million move speed and you're still gonna be, even with a pretty bad kit, you'll be like 180 HP with 330 movement speed. And then with Rage, if you have a Felling Axe and you're 330 movement speed and you pop Rage, you'll be 330 with Felling Axe out if you're 330 with Fist out, because it's 10% movement speed, which is 30 movement. So I think that build's really good, because you can fight most other classes pretty easily, and also you kind of like, it's really hard to die, because with Crush and movement speed capped, you can just run away forever. It's really, really hard to catch a Barbarian that's movement speed capped, because he just breaks all these doors, and he starts pulling all the mobs behind him, which will block you from reaching him. So really good build. I don't think it's insane, but I think it's definitely pretty good. And then we have Bard, and I was thinking about putting Bard in Thanos, but I'm gonna throw him in S tier just because I think another class is very close to him, and I reserved Thanos tier for one class that is just like miles ahead of everyone else. So I'll throw Bard in S. I think Bard in solos is the best solo class. And I mean, I've thought that for at least like 2 or 3 wipes now. Bard and solos is just insane. The thing is, you don't see that many bards in solos, to be honest, or at least not as many as you would think for, you know, me putting it as the best class. But it's mainly because it's pretty hard, I think, compared to other classes like Barbarian and Fighter. And also you need to keep your buffs up, which a lot of people find annoying. Yeah, I think Bard played at a really high level is just almost unbeatable in solos, because you can be extremely tanky, fast, and deal a lot of damage, and you have good ranged options with survival bow and the crossbow, and you really don't have any just horrible matchups. I think the worst matchup will be another class that I'm going to get into soon that everyone is probably going to be rating as the best class, or like most people would probably say it's the best class. I just think Bard is at the tippity top because of all the options. I think on Bard, actually, you also want to go 330 movement speed, and because when you go 330 movement speed on Bard with your fists out, it makes it so these other classes like Barbarian and Fighter, when they pop their movement speed ability, you can just run away and wait it out and just keep kiting them, and it's really insane. And I think that, coupled with Unchained Harmony, which is the song that opens doors, it makes Bard kind of like Barbarian, a class that is almost just uncatchable if they need to run away and get a reset, which is really good. So I'll put Bard in S tier. Cleric, thrown in C tier for Cleric. Not really, but yeah, Cleric is pretty bad, I would say. Better than last wipe. I had it in Do Not Play this tier. But I think it's a little bit better. I think Cleric is still pretty bad. There was a little period this wipe where Cleric in solos was absolutely insane, but a couple of the perks got nerfed, and I think it's not great. I think if you play Cleric, you play the Divine Protection and Smite build, you have no spell, and it's pretty good at land mining, and it can definitely box up other classes like fighters and stuff. But I think that it's too easy to just run away and wait out Cleric spells most of the time. And the slow on faithfulness was nerfed, so you can't really stick onto people as much because I think it only slows them when you hit them once and then it goes on cooldown. And yeah, it's just got nerfed so much that I think it's just not that great in solos, but it is definitely playable. I wouldn't throw it in do not play this, but it's just worse than it was earlier in the wipe. Next we have Druid, and this is going to be my first hot take. I would throw it in A under Barbarian. So the thing with Druid is like, there's been a lot of people on like Discord and Reddit that have been complaining and saying, oh, we need Druid nerfs. This class is completely broken. It's unbeatable in solos. And from my experience playing solos, I don't think I've ever died to a Druid and I thought like, oh, that was bullshit. This class is way too good. If you think about it, Druid has like 3 options to kill you, right? They can either go a spear build where they don't even use animal forms, but then they're just playing with the spear. Their base stats aren't that great for that. And they have no spear perks or like abilities that complement it really. So it's really not that great. They can go Panther, which I do think is the best build because then you can pick off squishy classes if you get the jump on them. You could destroy casters, and if someone's low, you can just easily kill them with a Panther form. Pretty squishy, and it has some bad matchups, but you can kind of just avoid those on Druid if you want to. So I think that build's pretty good. But there are like a decent amount of matchups that you kind of just instantly lose, like on Panther. Namely, like Fighter and Barbarian and Bard are really hard. And then there's this Bear build that people are talking about, and I do not understand this whole, like, people have been saying Bear is really OP, but I feel like it's just horrible. I don't think I've ever died to a Bear in solos, and if I have, it's because I just blatantly made a horrible play. Like, realistically, the only way you ever die to a Bear, if you're not trolling, is if the guy hits a Panther into a chicken like double jump and then goes Bear like mid-air and hits you with the right click. But like, if you expect that, you can easily avoid it, and also there's not that many rooms where you can like really do that. Or the other way they kill you is by you walk into a doorway while they're just holding their book out, they throw the Trent down and then you're stuck in the doorway, you can't back up, and you're kind of just cornered and they just hit you with the right click. But like, that is just easily, like, it's so predictable when they're doing that, and there's just like, you getting into that situation is a misplay in itself. So I feel like Bear is honestly really bad in solos, and you can kind of just shoot them with your ranged options on most classes until they just run away or you kill them. And another thing about Druid in solos is people have been saying that it's unkillable because they can just reset whenever they want. You can never, when they go rat form, they're just out of there. But like, realistically, that's not actually as good as people say it is. Like, don't get me wrong, I've definitely had Druids jump me, do some damage, we're both low, and then they just go rat, they get away, they jump to the door window, and they're just gone. And they reset, they come back. But when a Druid's resetting, like, heals are so good in the game now that you'll both reset and get to full HP, like, around the same time. Even with Mending Grove and stuff like that, you just, like, pop a health potion and then a couple of green bandages and you're full HP on, like, any class, right? Or just a blue surge kit. And 2, rat form is not this 100% guaranteed free disengage that everyone acts like it is. Because if someone's going rat form and jumping through a door, almost every class in the game, pretty much every class in the game, can just kill them if you are expecting that. And you can use a bow, you can use a crossbow, you can use throwing knives, Francesca axes, or what a lot of people forget is you just need to bring torches. Because unless their kit is really insane and they have a bunch of flat HP, most of the time a torch will just kill a rat. So they go for the door jump, you throw the torch, you kill them, GG. I think it's like really, really overrated. A lot of people would say Druid is like Thanos or S tier, but I don't think it's that insane. I think it is playable and it is good. And there's a lot of skill expression on the class, but it is not this like freak beast, unbeatable god thing in solos that just needs to be nerfed. I think it's fine, and honestly I don't think it needs any nerfs right now. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. Maybe Rogue is a good matchup into it. But I've played Bard, Rogue, and Barbarian in solos, and I've never had a problem with Druids a single time the entire wipe that I can think of. I think if you know how to play against it, it's just not that crazy. Honestly, the most annoying part about Druid is that they can get really good third parties because they can like hide in chicken form and they're pretty much the sneakiest class in the game with chicken form and how quiet Panther is creeping around. So yeah, I'll put Druid in A below Barbarian. Next we have Fighter, throwing him in S tier. This might be another controversial thing. People would put him in Thanos, and the thing is, Fighter is actually a decent matchup into Bard, but it's not as one-sided as some people think it is. So the thing is, Fighter plays like similar to Bard, except you have less options because you know, Bard has the debuffs, all the songs you can play, the door opening song, like, you know, if you run Accelerando, Allegro, stuff like that. But I think Fighter is just kind of like a way easier version of Bard right now if you're playing the Rondell Buckler plus Survival Bow build, where it's very straightforward. You don't need to do anything except you see the enemy, you press sprint, second wind, you go in. Or you poke them with the Survival Bow first, and then you do that. And that build is really good. I think the problem is it's a little bit weak into casters like Wizard, Warlock, and even like a Cleric build can kind of mess you up if you're going the Rondell Fighter build. But like overall, it's really easy to play. And if I was gonna recommend like what's the #1 class if you just want free wins, like it probably would just be Rondell Buckler Fighter. It's easy to pilot, and yeah, I mean the skills are good, the perks are all good. Really good class. Not as good as Bard, I think, if you're really good at the game, but definitely a really good class. Next, we have Ranger, and I would actually put Ranger right below Barbarian. Better than Druid, but worse than Barb. I think Ranger right now. The last wipe had a really big problem where in solos, if you get landmined by Barbarian, Bard, Fighter, Cleric, Rogue, even like a Wizard, you just die instantly. But with the backstep and shotgun longbow build right now in solos, I think it's actually pretty good. Because obviously Ranger has the best range in the game, right? The problem was the close range where you round a corner, someone's waiting for you, you just die. But now with backstep and shotgun, there actually is a decent amount of outplay potential in the close range like fights. So I think the class got a lot better from where it was last wipe. I think also if you're really good at the game, you're a really high skill mechanical player, I think Ranger's a great option for solos next wipe as it is right now. And yeah, honestly Ranger's in a good spot. One thing for sure though is remove Ranger traps from the game. They are insanely broken. Like, I get that you can look at the floor, you know, right? You could walk around the whole dungeon staring at the floor, but like the fact that a Ranger trap, if the Ranger's waiting close by and you step in a Ranger trap, the fact that it basically just one-shots every single class in the entire game is kind of insane. I feel like that just, especially if they have a blue Ranger trap, you can't even block with your shield because it lasts so long. Eventually, you're just gonna die. And yeah, Ranger traps are way too good. Just remove them, please, Iron Mace, I beg. Or just change how they work completely. Anyway, next we have Rogue, and I put Rogue in A under Ranger. With the caveat, so like right now, the problem with Rogue is like in melee, you kind of just lose to Bard, Fighter, Barbarian. And in range, you lose to Ranger, Warlock, Wizard. I think if you go double hand crossbow with poison, bunch of throwing knives, it plays that little mid-range angle. Probably the best in the game out of any class. Because you just play in that range where they want to pull out their ranged weapon like a fighter or a bard, and then you go in for some stabs, they pull out the melee weapon, you go back to throwing knifing them, hand crossbowing them. It's pretty good there, but other than that, like if it was no like hand crossbow rogue or no throwing knives, if you had neither of those, or you know you're not doing that build, then I would probably put Rogue in like B or like C above Cleric. But with that build specifically, I think the class is decent in solos. Other than that, not great. You can play with Creep and you can play a super ratty, like only third party kind of Rogue and probably see a good amount of success. But yeah, in an actual fight, like it's kind of sad because even if you get the first hit on someone, you get the jump on them, like a fighter, a bard, a barbarian, they can just turn on you and just kill you anyway. Like it just doesn't matter because you don't do enough damage for the amount of health that you have. Where like, you get the first hit, it looks good, but then they just kill you in 2 hits. So it's kind of sad right now for the Rogue, in my opinion. But yeah, hand crossbow build, pretty good. Next we have Warlock. And Warlock, I'll throw in B tier. I think Warlock is pretty bad. It's like okay. I mean, it's been nerfed so much. So I think the class isn't that great anymore. I would say like Caster Warlock, probably the move in solos. And if you're really good at it, I think it's definitely playable, but I think it is pretty weak. It's just been nerfed so many times that class is not great in solos. Not much more to say than that. It is pretty decent into fighter most of the time though, which is pretty good. So, I mean, it has that going for it because there are a lot of fighters. So I think if you're good at Warlock and the meta next season is like all these fighters, then definitely a playable, you know, option if you like the class. Then we have Wizard. And I'm gonna put Wizard above Warlock in B tier. So Wizard's kind of controversial because almost everyone always says it's like trash in solos, but I think Wizard has had like a lot of, it's had metas where it's the best class and like it's had times where it's like probably the worst class. I think right now, if you're good at Wizard, it's really good, but I'd say like on average for like a tier list sake, I would put it in B tier. I think the best build is that you go Arcane Shield, Reactive Shield, and Ice Armor. You're just super tanky. If someone gets the jump on you, you don't die instantly. And yeah, you play the mid-range like really well on Wizard. As long as you don't get like jumped by like a Cutthroat Rogue or a Barbarian that's 30 movement speed or whatever, you're usually going to be fine. And the class does a lot of damage, has a lot of outplay potential. Definitely a really good class. It's not great in solos in my opinion, but definitely playable. And yeah, that's my solos tier list. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm completely wrong or completely right. And yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So now we'll go into duos. Alright, so duos I'm going to go through pretty quick. Just a point about duos starting off is I think the game mode's pretty balanced. It might be the most balanced game mode, to be honest. You can kind of play whatever you want and play whatever playstyle you want and make it work as long as you're good at the game. Definitely some things are stronger than others, so let me just go through now. So start with Barbarian. I think in duos, actually, it's not too great. I think the problem is if you want just straight up damage, there's usually better stuff with like ranged options. And if you want like a frontliner in duos, you probably would just want a fighter instead, or even a bard. It's not bad, and I think double barbarian, like double speed barb is pretty good. But like overall, I don't think barbarian is too exceptional in the duos. Next we have bard, back into S tier. I mean, what can I say about it? It just gets better with other players because now you're buffing yourself and them. And the class is just insane. I think in duos, it's kind of a toss-up. Like, you might want survival bow, but crossbow is also pretty good. You can also kind of bend bard to be like whatever you want. You can play like more of a frontliner, or you can play more like range damage, or you can play more of like playing for like Song of Shadow, Invis, have your teammate bait for you, and then you pop out Invis and kill them. Bard is just insane in every game mode, and yeah, in duos, it's not different. In Cleric, I would probably put Cleric in B tier. I think Cleric is pretty good, better than it is in solos. At least in duos, you can play a support Cleric and have, you know, your main dude just go beast mode, or you can play like a hybrid. You can play kind of frontline and go in with your teammate. I think it's just better in duos than solos. It's nice to have a teammate to pair with, and that can cover your weaknesses, mainly your lack of range damage. Pretty good to have covered as well. And then we have Druid. I'll also put Druid in B tier. I think Druid is fine in duos. It's not great, obviously not much range damage, but it's decent pairing a druid with another druid or like a rogue, and then you just play like a really ratty like third-party play style and people can't really catch you. And I think that is good, but I think it struggles into comps that have like double like frontliners. Like if you go bard fighter when you're playing druid into that, is just unplayable. You can never kill them if they're good at the game. And yeah, that's kind of the problem with Druid, but I think it is okay. Then we have Fighter. I'll put Fighter in A tier. I think Fighter in Duo is pretty good. I mean, the class is just, you can be the frontliner or you can go for more damage. I think Bard Fighter, one of the best combos together, because they can just push in together or they can play double range together and poke you down. It's kind of insane. Yeah, I don't know. Fighter's pretty good. I gotta say, Fighter's pretty good in the duos. It's, you know, playable in every game mode for sure, but I think it's worse than it is in solos, for sure, but still really good. Okay, Ranger, I'll put at the top of B tier. I think Ranger is not bad in duos. Actually, you know what? I think Ranger is pretty good in duos, I'm not gonna lie, because you can kind of cover your weakness of having to be the guy that like walks in first everywhere. You pair Ranger with like a bard or a fighter that can be your frontliner, and then it kind of enables you to play the class, you know, more like without worrying about every single doorway or moving around the map. It becomes a lot better. So I think Ranger is pretty decent in duos, for sure. But then we have Rogue, and I'll probably put Rogue at the top of B. I think Rogue, I mean, is similar to Druid. It's just like some classes in melee you're not going to win. In ranged, you're not going to win. But also, I think like the double hand crossbow throw knife build, it's still playable in duos, but it is a little bit worse because it kind of is a build where you need to play on your own. Like, you need another teammate that doesn't need to rely on you to get in there and do damage. If you're playing with someone slow, they're just going to get caught out while you're trying to like poke the other people down and just die. And also, it's hard to play the double hand crossbow build against two players that have ranged, because you can't play that little like middle ground where you're trying to like bait out the melee switch, because when you go in for a dagger hit, you know, their teammate might be still ranging you behind them, so it's kind of difficult. I think Rogue isn't great in duos, but if you play around, you know, Rogue strengths, then it's definitely playable. I think Rogue Druid or Rogue is pretty decent. Next, you have Warlock. Throw Warlock in C. I think Warlock in duos is just not great. It's kind of demolished by a lot of stuff. I think like there might be some demon warlock shenanigans that are pretty good or something, but like I just feel like warlock is not great in duos. If you're really good at the class, you know, 100% is playable. I wouldn't put it in the do not play this category, but yeah, the best thing it has probably is that you can just hydro chuck around corners for people that are trying to landmine, but other than that, it's just not great. I think it would be much better to just pick Wizard, which I will throw in A tier above Ranger. Wizard's a lot better in duos because now you have a teammate that can cover for you, similar to Ranger. They can, you know, face check doorways for you and like clear stuff. And also Wizard is a lot better actually in duos than solos because the buffs that you can, you know, use, like mainly haste invis, those you can throw that on your teammate or yourself. You have more options, and buffing in, you know, your teammate can be another option that just enables you to, you know, win fights. I don't know, it's just a lot better in duos. You can play with your teammate. When you're just a lonely wizard in the dungeon, it's definitely more rough for sure. But yeah, I don't play too much duos. This is kind of just when I did play, this is kind of the vibe I was getting of the meta, how strong everything was. And yeah, that looks pretty good to me. And now I'm gonna get into trios. Let me reset it one last time. Alright, so for trios, starting off with the Barbarian, throw him in A tier. Barbarian's pretty good in trios. You can play a frontline Barbarian like Buffball Barb Classic with either, you know, Cleric Wizard or Cleric Bard or Wizard Bard. Like any of those can work. Or you can also do another popular thing recently is triple Barbarian, triple speed Barbarian. And it's kind of just a team that runs around the map, breaks every door. They're kind of just a nuisance where they don't ever engage, but they're always just lurking and they're just waiting to third party. And you kind of you can't really chase them down because they just run away at max move speed and they never get blocked by doorways because they break them. You also can't really poke them because it's a class with 200 HP and you're not gonna, like, you know, kill them with a survival bow or even like a longbow for that matter. They're just gonna run away in time, and they have potion chuggers so they can heal up really fast when they do get poked. So yeah, that playstyle is pretty good. Or yeah, as I said, Buff Barbarian is pretty good as well. Next we have Bard. I mean, it's just funny at this point. Bard is just S tier in every category, minimum, if not Thanos in some. But I would say on this patch, it's just S tier in every category. Having a Bard is just never bad. It's just the class is really good on his own, and then also when you're buffing up your two teammates is really good. But Bard also enables some comps to they have like a lack of engage. They can't get in there fast. Then you have a Bard that can just Accelerando, Allegro on your frontliner. They go in and they're just a beast. So yeah, Bard is really good. Really, really good in trios. To no one's surprise. Then we have Cleric. And Cleric is Thanos tier. I'd say it's the only... There was no Thanos tier class in solos or duos, but in trios it is Cleric. I mean, Cleric is just insane. You pair Cleric with any team, any like normal team comp, so Cleric, Wizard, Bard is the most common, or you can even go like Cleric, Bard, Warlock, something like that is pretty popular. You know, Buffball Barbarian with the Cleric on the team, it's always good. And yeah, Cleric heals are just insane. The thing is, almost every stat on gear this wipe was nerfed, but for some reason, magic healing was not. And not only that, but they also buffed Cleric spells. I think Sanctuary casts faster now. And they gave Cleric another lesser heal, which I actually could not believe in the most recent patch. So yeah, Cleric is just the best class in trios. Having a Cleric on your team is insane. There was a while where like double Cleric was meta. I don't think that's that great anymore, but it's completely playable for sure. And I mean, yeah, Cleric is just, it's just insane, man. It's just insane. With the time to kill in the game, having a Cleric on your team versus a team that doesn't have a Cleric, like you just win like every fight if you play it properly because you just have way more health on your team. And yeah, Cleric's OP. As like a side note, I'm kind of worried. I hope it gets nerfed like really hard, because I have a feeling right now if Arena came out, there would just be, Cleric would be mandatory. Like if you don't have a Cleric on your team, you just lose. Because in Arena, Cleric gets even better because you don't need to run Res. In Arena 3v3, you would just swap that for Earthquake. And then like that's always been a problem where like Cleric has always kind of wanted to have 6 spells. They just go 10 spell so they can like grab Earthquake and then a couple other like decent things, but mainly it's like Earthquake, to be honest. Like bind kinda. But yeah, the fact that in Arena you can just drop Ruz and then just pick up Earthquake, and then you have double heal, Sanctuary, Earthquake, and then like Holy Strike, you're just beast mode at that point. Like, it's insane. Yeah. Nerf Cleric. Or nerf magic killing on gear. I don't know, anything. Anyway. Next we have Druid. Put Druid in B tier. I think Druid is definitely playable in trios, but it's not too great. I think if you're really good at it, like, it's a great class. But when you're playing Druid against meta stuff like, you know, Bard, Cleric, Wizard, it's pretty rough to get an opening. They also nerfed the Treant and the Vine, like the Thorn Wall and Thorn Barrier or whatever. Before, like, a Druid kind of made it so your team could just never push in, because the first guy in would just get walled, and then Treanted, and then walled, and then Treanted, and then walled, and then Treanted, while your other two teammates are just beating down their frontliner who's in solo. You can't really do that anymore because you only have 2 Treants and you can jump over the wall. So, like, you kinda can, because if you trap someone in with the Treant, and then you can throw a second one down, and then maybe kill their frontliner in that, you know, short amount of time, but, like, probably not. So, like, overall, like, I don't think Druid's too great, but definitely is playable. Next we have Fighter, and I'll put Fighter above Druid in B tier. So I don't think Fighter is great, because you probably would rather just have a Barbarian or a Demon Warlock is another meta pick right now in trios. Because those two just beat Fighter in a 1v1 is the problem. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. If you're playing Fighter in a traditional like comp, so you have like, let's just say you have Fighter, Bard, Cleric, and then you run up against another team and they have, you know, a Demon Warlock, Cleric, Bard. Then you kind of just lose in a straight up fight, because the Warlock is just way tankier than the Fighter. They did take away Chris Dagger from Warlock, but I don't even think that matters that much. I think it still just beats the Fighter for the most part. But yeah. I mean, it's definitely playable if you like the class, and I do think good fighters actually stand out a lot. Like, if you're really good at Fighter and you know how to space properly, and you know you're really good with the heater shield, you know, the class is great for sure, but in trios it's just not the best frontline. And if you're playing Fighter in trios and you're not playing frontline, the class is trash. So yeah. Then we have Ranger. Put Ranger in C. I think Ranger is pretty bad in trios, and that's because everyone has a Cleric. So like, you play Ranger and a team pushes into you, it's like, oh, I headshot him again, headshot him 3 times. Like, you're hitting their frontliner. Headshot him 4 times, and then you just hear like Lesser Heal once in a while, you know, Holy Light. God forbid you hit like 50 arrows in a row, Sanctuary, and then all your damage didn't do anything, and now they're on top of you and you're dead. So like, yeah, Ranger's pretty bad in trios. You can play around Ranger traps, which honestly almost bring the class up to like B, just because you step in a Ranger trap and then they die instantly. That is just OP, but it's kind of a gimmick, and I don't think I'm gonna rate it higher just because of Ranger traps. But yeah, as I said earlier, those are broken, so I don't know, remove those. We have a Rogue, and I put Rogue actually above Ranger. I do think Rogue is not the worst trios class this time around, and I don't think it's in the, I don't think any class is in the do not play this tier. Rogue does have some options in trios. Like, I think melee Rogue actually is decent. You kind of have to be wearing like crazy Biss and then get the jump on someone with hide ambush. I think if you're not playing hide ambush in trios, the class is just horrible. You can't go like poke Rogue in trios, because just like with Ranger, there are clerics that just negate all of your damage while the enemy team is running at you. But I think Rogue is playable in trios. I think, you know, there are some, you can get some decent openings on these buff ball teams. If they run in and they're careless, then you can pick someone off. The problem is that kind of just like relies on the team. Like, 1, they kind of have to push into you, and 2, they have to be kind of like careless and not really like clear anything. But like, a lot of good teams, they have a Bard that's running like what's it called, Den of Darkness or like Piercing Shrill, and they just slowly clear if they suspect there's a Rogue, so you never like really get that opening. And if you don't get an opening, you're not really going to kill any of these classes by just like running at them in a hallway. You need to get the ambush and create that chaos for your team. Which it can happen, which is why I think Rogue is playable in trios. I just don't think it's that great. And next we have Warlock. Warlock's going in A tier, and only because of Demon Warlock. So Demon Warlock is pretty good. I think it's a little bit worse than Barbarian, to be honest, but yeah, it's just a great frontliner. You just pair Demon Warlock with Bard Cleric, and yeah, it's really strong. Not much to say, really. Just insanely tanky. Damage is good. You have anti-magic, so you get a million magic resist for free. And yeah, I think if you're not playing Demon Warlock, like a Caster Warlock, just throw him in. Honestly, at this point, just throw Caster Warlock and do not play this, because Cleric just heals away all your damage anyway, and people will just run at you and kill you. And yeah, your little bit of poke damage does not matter. Then we have Wizard, and Wizard's in S tier right below Bard. I mean, Wizard has kind of just been forever, you know, an insane trios class. I think it's not as insane as it has been before, because you lost a lot of true damage, so like your missiles can't just one-shot everyone. Even if you have like full +8 true damage, which is like the max amount you can get on your gear, like I think, is it +8 or +9 with the unique choker? I forget. But even with max true damage, your missiles probably won't one-shot a really geared frontliner, which can be a pretty big problem, because you can just die to like a Warlock or a Barbarian if they get on you, or a Bard or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Wizard's always going to be insane for trios. Does a lot of damage, has a lot of utility for the team, and everyone knows that the kind of staple god comp for the past couple of wipes is just Cleric, Bard, Wizard. Bard buffing him in. Wizard's kind of the DPS carry, and Cleric is it's just Cleric, man. It's just, these heals are way too insane. Like, a common thing you see is the Wizard will be frontline, he just runs in. Oh no, there's a fighter on me. He just casts magic missiles, stands perfectly still, does not move, casts missiles over and over while the Cleric just throws heals on him. And he's just immortal. And the fighter is eventually just going to get shredded on by the missiles. It's kind of insane. And yeah, it's kind of my trios tier list right there. So let me know if you guys agree or, you know, disagree with all my ratings, my assessments. But yeah, that's what I think is the tier list for solos, duos, and trios going into next wipe. We'll see what happens if this changes with the patch. Hopefully it does. Hopefully Cleric gets nerfed and Rogue gets buffed. But obviously I am biased. And yeah, let me know what you think. Alright, thanks for watching. Peace.